Good evening! Happy Sunday, Dice Tower friends. I am Mike DeLisio, your host for tonight's Daily Chat, our lovely little dose of positivity at local time at the end of the night, depending on where you are. You may be, it could be morning, could be afternoon, it could be early evening, perhaps. Let's say, for example, you were on the west coast of the United States, maybe Nevada, perhaps Las Vegas, Nevada. Maybe, right? It could happen. Like with my special guest today, I would like to introduce to you all Mr. Chris Yee. Chris of the Meeple Overboard podcast, a proud member of the Dice Tower Network. Chris, welcome.
Hey, how's it going, Mike? Thanks for inviting me to come along. I see you've scraped the bottom of the barrel. You're hitting the F-list celebrities.
No, please. You don't know who I have coming on Thursday. That's going to be no, I'm just kidding. But no, really welcome. It's lovely to have you here. This was a good excuse for us to chat again. It's been a little while since, I think the last time we chatted, and it was very briefly, honestly, was at Dice Tower West in your hometown.
It was. Yeah, it was awesome seeing you and meeting you for the first time. And you were saying something about you had to go find your walker, and your pain meds weren't kicking in. So yeah, it was a loopy conversation, but it was really good to actually meet you and hang out and talk a little bit.
Correct. I would feel a little bit more, I don't know, pained by that jab at my increasing age if I didn't flake out on you because I was too tired. We were supposed to play a game. We had been trying to navigate playing a game for a couple of days, I think, at least.
Yeah.
And we're like, yeah, okay, we'll do it at, I can't remember what time it was, but it was a reasonable hour, but I was just wiped. I was just so done. And so I had to flake out, and I apologize. What are you going to do?
No need to.
I'm an old man.
No need to apologize. Yeah.
So for those of the audience, either live or who may be watching this later, who are not familiar with the Meeple Overboard podcast, why don't you just give a quick little introduction to what you and your co-host do?
So my co-host Wendy is also my wife, which is nice because that means we live together and it makes it very easy to record. We're not trying to say, I don't know, record and figure out time zones, say across the ocean, like
Correct.
An entire Atlantic Ocean or something.
What fool would do that? Yes.
I don't know. Yeah. So we're a half-hour podcast, and we have been around for 3 years. We've been a member of the Dice Tower Network for a little over a year now. And so, yeah, very excited about that. And so half-hour episodes every Saturday, because before you start a podcast, you have no idea how bad of an idea it is to launch on Saturdays when no one's driving and commuting to work.
So this is true.
Yeah, now we can't change it. Everybody, that's all our business cards say. So
right. So you're stuck now, and there's no going back. The thing that is most impressive to me, you've mentioned it now twice, Chris, is that you do a 30-minute podcast. And perhaps it's the nature of the podcast. I do a couple, but the main podcast that I do, wherein in 30 minutes, we barely have a chance to finish the introduction of whatever nonsense is happening. The fact that you can be that succinct, that you can actually get content, meaningful content presented in 30 minutes is impressive to me because, like I said, usually I haven't even finished complaining about something that happened in my car within the first 45 minutes. So what types of things do you tend to cover? Do you have like, I'm going to act ignorant for the purposes of our audience. I've listened to your podcast many times. Yes. No, I've listened to your podcast. What are some of your kind of regular things? What distinguishes Meeple Overboard?
Oh, I mean, absolutely nothing. But what we try and do every week is have 3 different segments that we go through, and it's been a little bit more off kilter since, lockdowns and quarantine and stuff. So a traditional episode will have the opening segment, which we call Shop Talk. We'll talk about a specific topic, whether a game mechanism or a game designer, and kind of go into that for 10, 15 minutes. We have a little random rally segment where we talk about anything we want. Quirks of the English language, new recipes we've learned from the week, just a new interesting little thing that I've bothered to read a Wikipedia page for. And then lastly, we do a game review. So I think that format's worked well. Lately, we've been doing more stuff like this, which is having guests on and talking. And when we have guests on, we let ourselves go past that 30 minutes.
Ah,
But an
okay.
average episode, we
Hmm.
try and keep it to 30, like a one drive commute or something someone can pop on and say,
Okay.
that's all I can stand. Thank you very much.
So the one thing that I really felt was distinctive and that I was impressed about with your podcast no longer applies. So, Chris, I'm sorry, you've lost all of your appeal to me. That's not true at
I'll sign
all.
off now.
We've got a lot of our favorite Dice Tower chat people in the chat tonight. We've got Gator Dave. We've got Kabuki Kid, Dean Muramoto. We've got War Game Cop. We've got Halo X30. We've got all kinds of cool people and more and more and more. And if I didn't say your name, I'm sorry. Hopefully, I'll get to a question. Speaking of questions, Chris, don't you think it's time that maybe we get into some questions?
I think it sounds good. I noticed Kabuki Kid mentioned I do
Mm.
have a raptor problem here in the back, but
Oh,
that's all right. She protects the household.
okay, fantastic. Kabuki also said Chris with the radio voice. Now, look, I don't want to say that I have an overly competitive spirit, Chris, because I don't think I do. I've been on the record that I don't feel like I have to win games. I'm not a terribly competitive type person, but I do feel like you and I, we have this battle of the voices, don't you? I mean, I think that we've got a little bit of uh, I imagine, maybe I'm speaking out of turn here, but I imagine that this is not the first time you've been told that you've got a radio voice.
I have indeed heard that before,
Mm.
and it still sends shivers up my spine every
Ah,
time.
okay.
I'm one of those people. It's weird. I like compliments, but
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm willing to admit it. Yeah.
Yes.
No, I've
Uh,
always enjoyed your voice, Mike,
well,
and I've always thought that when you jokingly say my sweet dulcet tones, I think you're actually onto something.
well, ditto to you, Chris. Your voice is lovely, and I've also been told, the whole radio voice thing, and so it is. Look, let's just say that we're giving the people what they want right now, Chris. We are just enveloping them with the lovely caramel tones that are coming through the airwaves, don't you think?
Caramel tones, yes,
Sure.
yes.
I don't know what that means, but okay. So I'm trying to. Okay. This is a classic Kabuki Kid question, and so Chris, this is for you because I'm pretty sure I've already answered this. But Chris, what is the game that got you into the hobby? What was your favorite childhood game?
Ooh, okay. So the game that got me, both my wife and I actually into the hobby at the same time was Dominion. It was
Ah, I've not
the
heard of it. Dominion, you say?
yeah. Don't it's older than 3 years,
Okay,
so you know
fair.
that's it's hard for some people.
Hmm.
No, the Dominion, the original deck building game. So my brother introduced a slew of games to us when we first got married, when we were engaged, and one of them was Settlers of Catan, which is a good
Hmm.
game.
Sure.
But he would just kind of consistently wipe the floor with us,
Hmm.
and he would tell us about opening placement strategy of your buildings. We're like, oh, that's
You're right, right, right.
sure, yeah,
Hmm.
you know, kind of stuff that he'd researched. He showed us Munchkin, which was always less
Okay.
than enjoyable, and then he showed us Dominion, and Dominion was the one that
Ah.
got us hooked. It
Hmm.
was absolutely amazing. The idea of constructing a deck over the course of the game. You can change out which 10 cards you play with, so every time's different. And so I thought, this is perfect. This is so much better than the idea of playing like a Magic the Gathering where we have to go and spend a bunch of money on new cards. And so then we bought every Dominion expansion. So,
Mm,
yeah, that's how
gotcha.
they trick you.
That is, yeah. That's how they get you. They lure you in with the with the base cards, and then you all of a sudden you're down a rabbit hole of all types of crazy cards. So, what was your favorite childhood game?
I would say the game that I played that I always had the most excitement about was 13 Dead End Drive. Just silly antics of
Hmm.
move other people's pieces underneath the statue, knock it over, kill other people, woo, all
Right,
that
right, right.
stuff. But it has a great visual and tactile appeal. And now that I, as an adult, actually think back on it, there's actually some gameplay to it. Because if I remember
Sure.
correctly, you are a hidden character. Nobody knows, are you blue or pink or orange or whatever. So you have to move all the different pieces and kind of hide which piece you are. If you're going directly
Mm,
for the door, everyone's going to murder you.
right,
So
right.
yeah, I think there's a little bit more to it than just dropping a chandelier on people, but that was obviously the appeal.
Sure. Well, and that's still a game that, even though it's kind of a, it's an older game, obviously, it's a mass market game, that game is still relevant. You know what I mean? It's still being played. Yeah, it's not, one of those games that have completely, fallen off the map. So that's a
Right.
solid choice, sir. All right, EarthFat has a question for us. If you want to have a good laugh during a game night, which games would you suggest to play? Chris, I'm going to lean on you for this
Mm.
one because I am not. I tend to think party game almost immediately. Although
Okay.
I've got some other ideas too. But do you have anything that's like right off the top of your head? Because this is not necessarily my wheelhouse.
I think two that come to mind immediately. One is Balderdash, another one of those
Okay,
kind of mass market games, but
sure.
it's just great,
Mm-hmm.
and you're always going to have something really funny, especially when someone misunderstands the prompt completely and puts
Right.
a horrifyingly wrong answer.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best.
Yeah.
For more of a somewhat strategy game, still kind of a party game feel, but actually in the strategy zone, Las Vegas, the Rudiger Dorn game based off of
Yeah.
my home city of Las Vegas.
Sure.
Roll
Sure.
dice, assign some out to the different casinos, and it's just for a game that's kind of a dice placement, kind of a mitigation and majorities game. It sounds like all
Right.
these
Right.
boring gamer terms.
Right.
It's just so funny to see what happens. Someone goes all in on sixes, someone ties them and knocks them out, and they don't get it. Stuff
Right.
like that is great.
Yeah, that's good. Because as far as party games go, I guess the one that comes to my mind would be Time's Up. That's kind of, almost become cliche now. But for outside of the party game realm, I think some dexterity games can be really, funny. Things, even something like Rhino Hero Super Battle is ridiculous if you're playing that with kids or adults or a mixed group. Um, Even something like word that has like push your luck, like Deep Sea Adventure or Diamant slash. Why can't I think of the American version of Diamant? Uh,
Ink and Gold.
Thank you, Ink and Gold. That can be really hilarious too, as everyone's just kind of diving in there, and you're trying to, because really that's a lot of the table talk. You're trying to goad people into going further down, and so that can lead to a lot of good times. I think a lot of laughter.
I have to share one significant story. So at the end of a MeepleCon, which was now Dice Tower West,
Right.
priorly it was called MeepleCon, we're
Mm-hmm.
hanging out with the brothers Murph, which, as you can tell, I'm not a big fan of those guys, but
No, bing
it was
bongs.
one of those late night. One of my favorite types of time to laugh gaming is late night after hours, and you're just everyone's exhausted, but they want to pull out one more game. We're playing Rhino Hero Super Battle. The tower is built up, just a house of cards, ready to fall at any point. And so Nick Murphy's up there, he's stretching, he goes, and he knocks the entire tower over,
Yeah.
just trying to get in a zen little place, breathes
Uh-huh.
out, and
Hmm.
yes, that's a great pick, Mike. I
That
would
sounds very
second that
much,
absolutely.
thank you. That sounds very much like Nick. Um, so Nathan Bredfeld asks, what is the most innovative card game released in 2019? I think there's kind of what I
Okay,
think is the no-brainer answer here. So I'm going to count to three, and you and I are going to say the exact same game together because I'm relatively sure we're both going to say the same thing. All right, are you ready? We're gonna hopefully the delay is not too bad. I'll wait a little bit after I say three to account for the delay. Okay, one, two, three. The Crew.
Paladin to the West Kingdom. Uh, just kidding. No, yeah, no. I mean, I would go with the Crew as well. I mean,
Yeah.
it's people joke and say, "Oh, it's just spades with a
Mm-hmm.
mission book,"
Right.
and I look at that person and say, "Yes, it's spades with a mission book."
Right. Right.
It's
Right. Yeah.
so
Um,
I don't know.
the Crew is fantastic. It's terrific. I'm not going to beat this poor horse anymore. But every time the Crew comes up, I feel almost compelled to say that I don't love it as much as everybody else does. I think it's great. I just don't think it's going to have the staying power as some other games. But it is innovative. It I can't think of another game that has that whole we're going to play another game of this more. I mean, that game is almost designed to make you want to just play the next one, play the next one, play the next one. So
Mm.
um, I think it's going to do very well come award season. Fred Perro says, I am old and have no idea where you even find podcasts. Well, look, Fred, look in the yellow pages. It should be right there underneath your newspaper. And pick up your rotary dial phone and look under P for podcasts. And you'll just dial the number there for podcasts. And hopefully you don't get a busy signal.
Mike, I can't believe you're going to play this joke again on poor Mr. Podcast. Jonathan Podcast has been having a rough week since he started this joke.
The hilarious thing is all of those jokes are things that I actually lived through. I remember phone books, I remember newspapers, rotary dial phones, the whole nine. Okay, so let's see here. This is me looking through some lovely chat, but I want to get to some questions.
The chat's fun to watch, by the way. It definitely should be said.
We've got some fantastic chat that always goes on. Skilled chefing? It's like listening to two crooners. Back to the voice.
Ooh,
Chris, I'm gonna lean in. Do you like to croon, Chris? Are you a crooner? Do you fancy yourself a crooner?
I would not necessarily say I fancy myself a crooner, but singing along to Frank Sinatra or whatever. That's always my father raised me on a good healthy diet of Billy Joel, Frank Sinatra, and Harry Belafonte, and so I was the popular kid in school, as you could tell.
Yeah, you walking down the hallways of school. You got your leather jacket, the collar popped up, and you go, I did it my way. That's going to make you the envy of all. Halo X30, or is it Hallo X30 or Halo X30? I don't know. I mean, Chris, what are your thoughts? Halo X30 or Hallo X30? Which way would you lead?
Halo 1030.
Halo 1030. There we go. Even better. Which of your favorite movies do you want to be turned into a board game? And which board game do you want to see a movie of?
Clue and Clue, but I would.
Yeah.
So favorite movie, it's hard because IPs are very popular. We've seen Jurassic Park board games. We've seen obviously Star Wars board games. We've seen Back to the Future board games. But I'm excited that Prospero Hall is taking a crack at the Back to the Future theme.
Yeah.
I've seen some of the little teaser pictures of that, and it looks like it to be cooperative, which I enjoy, and especially for a themed game like that. And I think that also I trust the hands of Prospero Hall with something like that.
It's very interesting you mentioned that, because what I was going to say is no matter what the game is that comes from a movie, I'll feel okay as long as it's being handled by Prospero Hall, because they just, they seem to be doing a really good job. Now, that being said, I have not played The Shining, nor have I played Top Gun, although I've seen Top Gun being played, and it looks fine. It maybe doesn't grab me as much as some of the, but again, I haven't played it. So I think, I don't know, this is probably going to be too simple of an answer, but I would love to see a good Raiders of the Lost Ark game. That just kind of, there have been games that are basically that, you know what I mean? I would have said Aliens, but we already have that now in Nemesis.
Right.
But what board game would I want to see a movie of? I know catch grief about this, but I love the world of Scythe, and so I would love to see a movie with that kind of alternate history with these big mechs going around, and I think that would be potentially fantastic. So, because that game already feels cinematic to me, so that's probably why I lean in that direction. Do you have any board game you'd like to see a movie of?
I mean, yeah, it's going to have to fall on the epic side of things. No one's going to say Dominion the movie, sir, we require more farmland. We do not have enough villages, sire. So give me a Twilight Imperium movie or miniseries. I think that would be well worth it.
Yeah. Talking about, I believe, games that got them into the hobby, Our Family Plays Games, who, I don't know, have you seen any of the segments that Our Family Plays Games have been doing recently for Board Game Breakfast?
I I don't know if I have.
Yeah, they just started up, and a lot of people here in the chat have been saying how much they enjoy the those new segments, and I have been as well. I've seen them. I've actually when I edit put together Monday's breakfast, I've seen that there. They say that Catan was their kind of their entry level game
Mm.
into the hobby. One of the segments they did was about that, and I have said in the past that that was the game that got me in as well. So we are kindred spirits in that way. Our family plays games. Mark Stang, Dominion is amazing. One of my gateway games as well. Hmm.
Mark, you're a good man. Good man. I look forward to seeing you at another Dice Tower West.
Oh, do you know Mark?
Yes, yeah,
Ah,
I got a
okay.
chance to meet him. Yeah, I know. I've met a few people in the chat here. A fellow named Paul in the chat is actually about 500 yards that way, so that's kind of nifty.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting. I'm Balderdash is still fun. Telestrations. A lot of people are kind of talking about those games that give them a good laugh. So this means that I'm way, way, way behind. So I'm going to try to go forward a little bit. Okay. I think I've answered this question before, so I'm going to leave this one to you, sir. Kabuki Kid asks, what's the oldest game in your collection that you still enjoy? For anyone who might not have heard from me, it's Blue Moon City. For you?
Okay. Oldest game, oldest as in like that we've had the longest has been Dominion. Oldest as
Okay.
in chronologically oldest. I think one of the oldest games we own is For Sale, the small little
Okay.
auction card game.
Sure.
What a fantastic game! Just one could call it a perfect game.
Wow. A perfect game, you say? No
Yeah.
flaws. It's flawless.
Yeah, I mean, and anything that's flawed with one particular play of it, just shuffle up the cards and play again for
Yeah,
another
that's a
10
great
minutes.
point. Yeah.
It's
No,
great.
I was just trying to be provocative. I'm trying to put you on the spot, Chris. I'm just trying to, you know how I do this.
Oh,
I've
yes.
got to make my guests feel a little bit disoriented so that they can break down all of their walls and we get the true Chris Yee. Okay.
I am Korean, so if you spin me around enough times, I become disoriented.
I don't know what that means. Um, Fred Perro, question. What is the current game you can't get out of your mind right now? Either dying to play or so hooked you are reliving gameplay or strategy. I really like this question, Fred. This is one of the things, Chris, that I love about this hobby. I love that after all of these years and after all of these games that I've played, and I'm nowhere near the level of someone like Tom Vassell, of course, but I've been in the hobby for a while and I've played a lot of games. After all these years, I still love that I will do this all the time and play a new game and then just be fixated on thinking about it for the rest of the day, um, going to bed thinking about it. I love
Mm.
that that still happens. So, do you have one in mind? I do, but I want to give you, I'm trying to be a good host. Uh, give
Oh,
you a chance. Do you have a certain game right now that you just can't get out of your head?
now, here's a weird one, right?
Okay.
It's shifted around. Obviously, the most recent one is Pandemic.
Okay.
And what's odd about this is I heard the recent release of, or the updated or upcoming release of Pandemic Hot Zone, the little mini game, kind of like the Ticket to Ride miniature
Yeah.
games,
Yeah.
but it's going to be a Pandemic miniature game. And so I
Hmm.
thought, what would that take? And so it just, having played a lot of Pandemic in my life,
Hmm.
uh, and just last week or 2 weeks ago, you had your wife on
Yes.
the chat,
Hmm.
and she was talking about having played the Pandemic app hundreds of times.
She's a master. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I've had Pandemic on the brain. And so I thought, how would I approach this? And so I made a small little design of like, how would you parse down Pandemic and make it a little Pandemic Express game? And so it's just been on my
Oh.
mind, literally going to bed. I would tweak these things around. I made a prototype of it and
Ah.
forced my family to play my little mini Pandemic. And it actually turned out to be pretty fun. So,
Oh, wow. That's cool. Yeah. Z just, I think his review just went up earlier today for that Hot
oh,
Zone North America, the new pandemic, the mini version, From
yeah.
what I understand, that started as a basically. I think that it may have been Z-Man came to Matt Leacock and said, "Hey, can you make a small version of this so that we can give these to game stores so that they can use them to demo it to people
Hmm.
coming into the store? Just a quick scaled down version." Um, And then if I'm wrong about this, I apologize, but I'm pretty sure this is what I heard. And so he did that, and they're like, well, this is really good on its own. So they released that. So
I think it's the same thing with the Ticket to Ride Mini, the New
ah,
York
like
and London. It's
okay,
that same idea of like, here's something you could demo in 10 minutes, but also it's a good enough thing on its own.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. For me, it's going to be a game that I just played today for the first time. And I say this because I've now been thinking about it for the rest of the day, and I'm fixated on when I could play it again. And that is Monumental. I played a solo game of Monumental. Um, Tom has already played it and reviewed it, and he adored it. And he said, "I think you really like it, Mike," and has a solo variant. And so I played it today, and if I didn't have other stuff going on, I would have immediately played it again. But I'm going to play it a few more times, obviously, so I can review it. But man, that was really good. Um,
Okay.
there are some things, there are some caveats that I'm going to definitely put out there as far as it being a massive table hog and a huge, huge. There's a lot of setup involved, but talk about a cool card comboing system. The fact that you can still have card combos and they feel fresh, um, because that's been done a lot. I mean, that's been like the thing is card comboing here over the last year or so, and this does it in a really unique way. So for that's my choice, Monumental.
Okay.
Nathan Bredfeld says, I played Paladin Solo for the first time yesterday. It was so great. I played twice in a row. Nathan, I do love me some Paladin Solo. Have you played Paladins of the West Kingdom, Chris?
I've played Paladins. It's my favorite game of last year. That's for sure.
Mm.
I tried the solo mode, and I think I was trying it too late at night because I was kind of struggling with it. I was like, I
Yeah.
gotta watch that. I gotta watch ashamedly Mike DeLisio's video to see how it plays.
Good luck with that. Yeah, yeah. You definitely are going
Yeah.
to need to be wide awake to watch that video. Yeah, no, it's great. But don't feel bad. I mean, there's a learning curve. That's probably that and the Circadians solo variants are the two trickiest Garfield solo variants. I mean, the payoff I think is very much worth it because you get
Mm.
a really nice experience out of it. But there's a learning curve, and I'm very excited. I'm getting a copy of the new re-implementation of Raiders of the North Sea getting sent to me from Shem, Raiders of Scythia. I cannot
Nice.
wait. So very, very excited about that. Timbo Slice asks, what are your currently played chill games that you play for enjoyment and not work related? Well, um, I'm assuming with the work related thing that's probably directed towards. No, no, it would be directed towards you too, I suppose, if you consider your podcast work. I don't know. I
Sometimes it
mean,
is. Yeah.
sure. So I guess this question could be, perfectly legit either way. Uh, Shameless plug alert. Shameless plug warning. I was looking for my sound effects, which I don't have up here now. I was going to ring a bell or something. We did a top 10 most relaxing games list, Tom Z and
Mm-hmm.
I, that was on the Dice Tower last week, or this week, actually. I think it was on Wednesday. I don't remember. Wednesday, Thursday, maybe. And so I talked about kind of chill games that I like to play, but the ones that I play just kind of for myself that aren't, anything I play that I'm not reviewing is for enjoyment. I still like to play Viticulture. That's a chill game to
Mm.
me. I've been playing Parks. Um, Chris, what about you?
What's so funny is viticulture has always been a very stressful type game
I
between Wendy and
understand that.
myself.
I
Yeah.
understand that. Yeah.
Whereas Sagrada and the Azules, those for me
Mm,
are more relaxing, and yeah, you can hurt the opponent by giving them 5 tiles when they really need one in
right.
Azul.
Right.
But I never stress over. I just say, there's a lot of broken glass or whatever.
Sure.
So yeah, we've been playing Azul Sintra, the stained glass one. So something about
Hmm.
that Sagrada are like my good chill. Give me some stained glass, please. That's what I need.
Yeah, and now see, it's interesting that you say that because I find Sagrada to be kind of stressful in a way too. So it just depends. I
Yeah.
think certain game. I mean, I like it, and I understand thematically it definitely has that kind of chill and beautiful. Um, but the restrictions, you know what I mean? Every turn being this
Mhm.
kind of restrictive puzzle that you're having to kind of parse out. And I also got the Sagrada app, which is fantastic, and it has a little campaign that I blew through in like 3 days. So you can still play it. It's just that was a that was a game that kind of allowed me to just turn my mind off a little bit. So that's a good choice,
Mm.
Chris. Good choice.
Oh, yes, of
Halo comes
course.
on and says, "What is a crooner?" Well, crooner, the way I've always understood a crooner would be like the old school um, singers, Frank Sinatra, Bing Crosby, Dean Martin, Harry Belafonte, just kind of the old school Mel Torme, Tony Bennett, those type of people. Yeah, is that your
Yeah, yeah.
understanding?
Yeah, I mean, 1960s Las Vegas, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
being a Las Vegas native myself, and
Yes,
that's right. And you lived here for a little while as
I
well.
lived there. Yes,
Yes, we have more in common than people would think. And
we do. As a matter of fact, I saw Frank Sinatra open the MGM Grand there when they built the MGM Grand. Frank Sinatra, while he was still alive, opened their big room, and I was able to see him, and that was a once in a lifetime experience. I mean, not many, certainly not many people around now can say that they saw Sinatra live. So that was a pretty cool experience. And I also saw Frank Sinatra Jr. at the lounge of the Desert Inn when the Desert Inn was still a uh, a functioning casino, which is probably. Were you born and raised in Vegas, Chris?
yes, yeah, yeah. I can say that the best story I have like that is I can say I saw not a crooner, but I saw BB King perform live
Ah,
at the Stardust when that was still around. I said
mm-hmm.
that to my coworkers, who are approximately 8 to 10 years younger than me, and they said, "Who?" I immediately felt very
Man,
old that day.
yeah, yeah. BB King, man. Legend. All
Yeah.
right. Caroline Pang asks top five game collection starters. This is a tough question. Um, it's tough um, because you can go in so many directions. Um, but I tend to think of, okay, maybe you want one co op in there, and I would probably lean Pandemic.
Yeah.
Um, you probably want maybe a social deduction slash party game, maybe type thing. A lot of people will suggest like the Resistance. I would probably lean more towards Deception, Murder in Hong Kong. Um, I don't know. Would you want like an abstract? Would you want a strategy game? I guess it really depends on your game group. Do you want two-player games? Do you want large group count games? Do you want competitive? Do you want, it's hard. Um, do you have thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and yeah, like I said, like you said, one of the biggest things is situationally. Are you
Mm-hmm.
only a two player, two people that are going to be playing the games, or are you going to have large groups and stuff frequently?
Right.
Honestly, what I would say is as a general catch-all, um, Pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
Las Vegas for a nice, fun little dice chucking
Sure.
game,
Sure.
Dominion Prosperity, and Dominion Seaside. There you go. Hey, look at
That's
that.
a
Five
hey.
done.
That's a well-rounded and diverse collection, Chris. You've got you probably it wouldn't hurt to have a deck builder in there, and I think Dominion is the pure kind of the pure deck builder. I mean, certainly other ones have come along and have riffed on that. I mean, you could look at Ascension, you could look at even like Star Realms, although I'm not a huge fan of Star Realms.
Yeah,
But
same.
you could do a lot worse than having Dominion in a collection because it introduces a lot of things that are going to be in other games as well. I mean, I still look. I don't think Catan is a bad game to have as a collection starter. It got so many people into the hobby, right?
Oh,
It's
hands down,
still
yeah.
a viable game today. And I was mentioning the last daily chat I was on how Catan just blew my mind and introduced me to the idea of victory points and variable setups and all of these things that I take for granted now, resource management that I never negotiation that I just hadn't really experienced in other games. And so I think Catan is a perfectly valid. Now, are there other games that do those things maybe a little bit more? elegantly and streamlined, perhaps, and so, but I still think katana is a very viable option to have in a as a beginning of a collection.
I really like seeing all the chat of all the people saying they were people. Our family plays games. Married in Las Vegas. People saying I saw these people perform. Little Richard perform. I love seeing people
Ah,
chatting about all the musicians, all the musical acts and stuff they've seen. That's awesome.
oh, that is awesome. And if you happen to see a good question, I'm notoriously slow. I get through maybe a third of it, but then what ends up happening is I end up rushing down to the bottom, and then I have to go backwards. So our family plays games. You just mentioned asks, Chris, what made you want to do a podcast? That's a really good question. What made you, and when do you want to start Meeple Overboard?
I always have to be in some sort of creative project. Before this, I was doing a lot of music recording. I played guitar for over half my life, and so I've just always had projects that I wanted to do and be creative. And being an accountant, especially I mean, just yeah, being in the public accounting world as I was for a few years, and then recently being in casino auditing, it's
Right.
not very creative lifestyle. So I'd
Yeah,
come home
sure.
and I would just want to do something that I was passionate about. And so uh, my burgeoning music career was not taking off. I'm not yet the next guitarist for Metallica, strangely. Uh,
Although you look like it. I mean, you do have the look, Chris. So it's just,
yeah, but yeah, so doing a podcast I thought was something I could do, something we could affordably do because we had music recording equipment. We had
mhm.
the microphones and stuff already. Don't have to worry about doing videos, like those suckers at the Dice Tower, always having to comb their hair and stuff.
Well,
So yeah, while I do a podcast, I have an okay voice. I can make it
hmm
work. So, yeah,
and you have 3 years later, Chris. The rest is history. Yes.
I guess, yeah. I mean, I'm in zero history books, but sure.
Our family plays games also says we need to play a Catan when we meet, Mike. Yes. Let's make it happen. Let us make it happen. Um, Apparently, hard hitting journalism. I don't know what I did that was hard hitting journalism, but I'll take it. It was probably from 20 minutes ago because I'm so slow getting through. Oh, Meeple Militia says Mike's is Cloudspire. I have been obsessed with Cloudspire too. I think this is calling back to that question of which game have you been thinking
Mm.
about a lot. And yeah, I would say longer term, it's been Cloudspire. I keep wanting to go through those solo scenarios. Um, that yeah, that game has been really on my mind a lot too. So oh, I'm so slow, Chris. I'm so bad at getting through these. Isn't this horrifying? It's awful.
This is the worst thing I've ever experienced in my life, Mike.
I appreciate that. Man, we've got a lot of wonderful Dice Tower. We've got our family plays games in here. I saw Jordan in here. We've got one Pip Wonder in here. Good evening. Good evening. We've got all of the heavy hitters of the Dice Tower and the lovely Dice Tower chat family as well. Mm, Have you played? Kabuki Kid is talking about Outer Rim. Have you played Outer Rim, Chris?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I'd like to. It seems like it'd
Yeah,
be good. So I
it
recently learned
does.
Star Wars Rebellion. I had a friend of mine teach me that
Mm.
because I didn't want to read the book. And so I think I stand the same way in Outer Rim. Once we open up and have game nights again,
Yeah,
I'm interested in that one.
that's good because actually somebody asked earlier, and I could try to find if I need to, but they were saying what's a gaming thing? Hey, let me find it. Darn it, I'm gonna find it because you kind of answered that question, and I feel bad because I want to. I know people have such good questions; they want to see their questions up there, and I understand it. And this is from like Chris. This has been a complete catastrophe, and I'm not saying it has anything to do with you. Um, because it doesn't. It has everything to do with me. I'm trying to find this question. I'm trying to stall for time. Someone asked basically, what do we want to do? Here we go. Mark Stang asked, what gaming related thing are you looking forward to do once the quarantine lifts? So sounds like one of the things you might be wanting to do is Outer Rim. That might be a good one. Anything else that you can think of that you might want to, anything else you might want to do gaming related once this finally gets back to some sense of normalcy?
Uh, so we have a board game cafe here in town called Meepleville. So
I've
Tim,
been.
yes, so Tim, who runs Dice Tower West, is
Mm-hmm.
also the proprietor of Meepleville, and I just love going to that place. I love
Yeah.
so Wendy and I's most common date night is let's go to Meepleville. talk to the staff there, hang out with people, play some games. I think that's the most gaming related thing that I'm really looking forward to, is just socializing there, talking with Tim. He's a great guy, absolutely great. So
Yeah, I can co-sign that. I don't know him as well as you. I just met him for the first time at Dice Tower West this year and at the Meepleville Cafe. Super nice guy. That cafe was outstanding. I really enjoyed that. The
yeah.
one thing that I would like to do when this kind of lifts is I want to play a proper large player count session of Forbidden Waters, the new Plaid Hat Crossroads game. I played a
Okay.
game with Roy Canaday over Skype, and it was just the two of us. And so you have to play it with a little bit of a variant. And while it was still cool, and I can kind of see how cool it's going to be, I know that it's going to shine with higher player counts of all the people in the same kind of room feeding off each other and getting into the pirate theme and everything. So I am looking forward to that because I think that that game has the potential to be a lot of fun. Well, it is. I think it can be even more. You know what I mean? If
Even
you
more.
get
Yeah.
into a larger player count, because I think that's really what it's designed for. I think at its best. Dead Squirrel asks, favorite polyomino game?
Oh, Baron Park, hands down. No questions asked.
Okay. I have a question. You said no questions asked, and I'm going to ask you a question.
Fine, Mike, for you.
Why is the correct answer actually Isle of Cats? That's the question.
Because I haven't played it yet,
Oh,
I
okay.
guess.
You
No,
should play it.
Phil.
It's fantastic.
Okay, Phil Walker Harding is one of my favorite designers, and I think his approach in Baron Park is just smooth and just very little. He always trims all the fat off of his games.
Yes.
So I'll
Yes.
try Isle of Cats.
Yes, he does make lean designs, Chris. He has very keto-tastic designs. I would agree with you, and I do like Phil Walker Harding games in general. But Isle of Cats, man, Isle of Cats. That's the polyomino game. That's the hip new polyomino game with all the kids. That's the game that's on TikTok. You go on TikTok,
Yeah.
you see nothing but Isle of Cats, Chris, all day long on
Yeah.
TikTok and on Twitch.
Yeah, all those influencers.
Yeah,
Yes.
the influencers on Twitch and TikTok. It's nothing but Isle of Cats. I've never been on TikTok. I was lured into Twitch once by those knuckleheads on your T-shirt. Actually, for
Yes,
some reason,
brothers.
the one and only time I was on Twitch was for something with the Murphs, the brothers Murph, the Nick and the Mike, the Murph brothers, and it was pandemonium, Chris. This Twitch thing is pandemonium. There were like balloons popping and animated GIFs bouncing around the screen and flashing fluorescent things. It was very disorienting. I'm not ashamed to admit it, Chris. I was disoriented. I thought that I had somehow stumbled onto the wrong site, but apparently it was right because the Brothers Merce were there holding down in all of that nonsense.
And power to them for every 3 seconds. Do you have a new subscriber?
Yeah. It's
they're dancing and stuff, and so good on them to try and somehow play a game while dabbing at 90 miles an hour.
It takes a very special set of skills. Dean Muramoto asks, how many shelves do you have reserved for board games?
Okay, so this is our rule. Our rule is that we have 2 cabinets, and let's see if I can do this. That's our big box section right up there. So Gloomhaven, Star Wars, Imperial Assault. That's our crate of Dominion right here, since all I'm talking about so far today is Dominion,
sure.
ANZ and Legacy. So those are our big games that we have. And then everything else is relegated to 2 cabinets, about this big or so. And so if we purchase more, we have to sell games out.
Okay.
And it keeps our collection lean. It keeps us from overflowing too much. And so that's our agreed upon. That's something I actually proposed, and Wendy really liked the idea.
Nice. So your collection is as lean as a Phil Walker Harding design. Is that what you're telling me?
One might say.
One might. I've got two 2x4 Calyx and one 1x4 Calyx, and then one knockoff 1x3 Calyx. I got rid of 2 of the big, huge ones, the whatever they were, I think they were 4x4s. I had two of
Okay.
those in Indiana, and I basically gave them away when I moved to Florida because they're massive and unwieldy, and I'll never buy a large Calyx shelf again when you could just buy the smaller ones and put them together. So um,
Oh.
I may or may not have uh, 12 or so boxes of games still sitting somewhere in the house. I refuse to answer that on the grounds that it might incriminate me. Meeple Militia says, "Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. Hope you all got awesome games for gifts." Yes, thank you for reminding me. Happy Mother's Day to everybody out there, and hope you all had a lovely, lovely day.
Indeed, yeah. Happy Mother's Day to the mothers, and happy Smother's Day to some others.
Smothers Day?
Smother's Day, yeah,
As in
for
the
some
Smothers
others.
Brothers? Do
Yes.
you know
Oh,
the
yeah,
Smothers
actually,
Brothers?
oh, yeah. I was raised on a healthy diet of the Smothers Brothers as
Okay.
well.
Okay.
Once again, adding to my hip factor.
Mm-hmm. Suck it to me. Mark Stang. Question: What is the best Korean barbecue in Vegas, and why is it Sura?
Oh, because actually we introduced Mark to Sura Barbecue.
Mm.
That's my favorite place. So yeah, if anyone's ever in Las Vegas, I highly recommend that. Go to Dice Tower West and spend an evening. Go over to Sura Barbecue because you can then smell like garlic and ginger for the rest of the evening, and you'll have plenty of gambling table space around you. It's weird how that works.
Man, I tell you, if there's anything better than the smell of garlic and ginger, I don't know what it is. And I'm being very serious. I know that some people find that smell offensive, but man, I do like me some garlic and ginger as well. Lots of people talking about viticulture. Lots of people talking about paladins. Lots of people talking about crooners and Frank Sinatra. So this shows you how far back I am, Chris. Chris, I am just helplessly behind in the chat. There's even BB King talk still.
Oh man, yeah, let's pick up the pace a little bit.
I now see the "We Were Married in Vegas" comment that you talked about. I don't know what 40 minutes ago. So I'm going to shoot way down towards the bottom and see if I can get to some of the later questions because we are already down to like 15 minutes or so. Here's a question. Nathan Breadfelt. Anyone have any thoughts on Canvas? Looks cool as heck, but money is tight. Are you familiar with this game? I think it's on Kickstarter right now. Have you heard about it at all?
It looks fantastic, and I think that this might be the best way to implement those clear plastic cards you can overlay.
Yeah.
What is it called? John Clare has been doing that with like Mystic Vale,
right? The card
and
crafting.
some of those, the card crafting, yeah. And so the idea of like crafting art looks really good. Mike, you might be familiar with a little phrase of "I ain't paying them prices." So,
I've heard it before, a time or 20.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've backed one Kickstarter in the last like year, and so it looks great, and I'm excited that one of the guys in my game group is backing it. So I'll try it then.
Okay. It looks really good. I'm not backing it currently because I haven't taken a really strong look. I assume it's something that we'll be looking at for crowd surfing, and so I'll take a closer look at that point. But just based off of that first glance that I saw, I'm intrigued, Chris. I'm officially intrigued. I've gone from interested. I've passed the interested barrier. I'm now firmly into intrigued.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's only 7 steps away from backing. So
7 or so. It depends. It depends on other things. But Emperor Mad, I like Baron Park and Isle of Cats, but Feast for Odin is my favorite. Feast for Odin's terrific. I don't think of it as a polyomino game, though. I think of it as a huge, sprawling worker placement game that implements polyominoes. So I don't know. I don't think of that as a polyomino game first, although that doesn't mean that it's not. It's just that's not the way I think of it first. Have you played Feast for Odin?
It's one of my top 3 favorite games, 3 or 4 games. So I love it. I agree that it's the worker placement is what drives the action, whereas the polyomino is kind of like a bonus puzzle. So I'd agree with your assessment, Mike. I have to agree with you for once.
Well, don't get used to it, but we'll
Okay.
we'll take it here. Nathan Bredfeld says today I watched Mike's video about explorers of the North Sea to learn that one. Thank you for watching, Nathan. And I brought this up not for self-aggrandizement. Is that the word?
Yeah.
Aggrandizement? Sure, we'll
Hmm.
go with that. Although that's
C
a
plus.
thank you. I appreciate that. You're grading on a curve, I can see. Although that's a nice little side benefit. But I brought it up because that's a game that I really think is underappreciated, is Explorers of the North Sea. It's because it's
Yeah.
so different than Raiders, and it's so different than Architects, and it's so different than Paladins. It is probably the lightest of any of his games, I would think, especially if you don't
Hmm.
have the expansion in. But what a delightful game. Just a tile laying game where you are sailing your ships out and you're collecting livestock and maybe raiding some villages. Just a pleasant little light airy game of raiding villages. But it honestly is. It's a really good game.
Yeah.
So that just I wanted to bring that up because I think that game is underappreciated.
And I would agree.
You like it as well.
I do. I do. Yeah.
Ah, cool.
I've not yet played it with the expansion because my only few complaints about the game is it's a little bit light. I wish
Hmm.
that you could, when you build buildings out of them, I wish you could bring animals to those buildings. And literally
Ah,
every like minor complaint that I had, I looked at the rules of the expansion. I
yep.
thought, oh, that addresses every single little thing.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I've
No,
got
the expansion is great. You're right. You can now take the livestock to the I don't can't remember what the name of the buildings are, but yeah,
a
um,
farmhouse or something.
something
Yeah.
along those lines. Yeah. Ken Aguasa, Meepleville went there during Dice Tower West. Great place, indeed, indeed. Hmm. All right. Earthfat asks, "What's your catchphrase?" Chris, do you have a catchphrase?
Ooh. Never punch a gift horse in the mouth.
Those are words to live by. Um,
Hmm.
that's deep on so many levels. Never punch a gift horse in the mouth. Um, I don't know what my catchphrase would be. Um,
I think,
some
Mike, you and I would actually have a similar
okay.
secondary catchphrase, which is probably "Who is," and then any pop culture reference.
That's true. That's a catchphrase. As is, do they have insert any number thing in the UK? That's another thing that I ask a lot because I have a lot of friends in the UK now, and so I'll talk about something. I'll be talking about maybe my garbage disposal. I'll be like, yeah, so the garbage disposal was making this really weird sound. Do they have garbage disposals in the UK? Those types of things. So that never gets old to me. I have a feeling that I'm the only person that never gets old to, but um, I do find that humorous. A lot of people talking about Forbidden Waters. Yeah, it's. I think it goes into wide release in June. I pre-ordered it from Plaid Hat, um, and I think that's done now. I think the pre-orders for that are done, but I do think it's coming into wide release in June. Um, so now I'm going backwards. I'm going backwards, Chris.
Okay. Okay. Sorry for
So
all the middle people.
yeah, just rest assured, some of you are going to get ignored, and it's not going to be out of avarice. It's not going to be avarice. What does greed have to do with it? That's not the right word, Chris. It's late for me. It's not out of animosity. That's the word I was really trying to say. And
I agree.
animosity and avarice, other than having the same starting letter, have really nothing to do with each other. Kabuki Kid asks, any favorite current video games? How about a favorite old school arcade game? Any pinball?
Okay. Las Vegas is home to the Pinball Hall of Fame, which is very fun. Uh,
Ah,
and so, yeah, one of my favorites of that was always the Super Mario World. So Super Mario Brothers pinball they had, which as an adult is actually an incredibly difficult machine to play.
mm,
As for video games, I'm right now playing through the Final Fantasy VII remake, and I'm quite
yeah.
enjoying it. And
Hmm.
I definitely feel like an old man right now, though. I'm like, oh, these buttons, I have to hit them so fast. So, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I have slowed down on video games lately. I have the Switch, and so I was playing through Zelda, but I need to get back to that. When I had my wife on, we discussed kind of how that didn't quite go. the way that either of us had expected. So I may have to try that one on my own. I may have ruined my chance to play it with someone much more attractive than me. So I still want to play that. But for like old school, like arcade games, I did used to play pinball. It was never, something that I would choose over the video games at the arcade, but I do like pinball. Um, I do like the gimmicky pinball tables, if I'm honest. I like the ones that have the multiple levels, and I like to have the ones where the balls dropped and pop up somewhere else. And the kind of the cheesier and more over the top, the better for me as far as pinball games go. Um, as far as like old school arcade games, like really old school, like I used to love Tempest, the game with the little spin wheel where you'd go around the outside and have to shoot at the things coming out. It was like a vector graphics game.
Okay.
And I used to like Gauntlet a lot, and I used to like Dragon's Lair, although that was so expensive I could never. I think like
Oh yeah.
maybe twice a year I would actually have the money to play Dragon's Lair. What usually would happen is I would stand there for an hour and a half and watch other people play Dragon's Lair because it was too expensive. Although this is an interesting question, Chris. And by saying that, I don't mean to imply that these other questions weren't interesting because they've all been fascinating
No,
questions.
you've tainted my expectations now. Yes. This
One
is the
Pip,
only interesting one.
this is it, yeah. One Pip Wonder asks, "What's your favorite movie snack?" And I've got a hot take here, Chris. I've got something very controversial. But again, I'm ceding the floor to you first.
Oh, sure. I have to go with the generic popcorn. I mean, just
Hmm.
I really like the flavored salt mixes, the white cheddar flavor or
Mm,
the Parmesan garlic, because I'm Korean, so everything should have garlic in it.
sure.
Everything. So
Hey,
yes,
I'm not Korean and I still co-sign. I'm Italian, so we do like our garlic too.
yes. So yours is controversial. Are you gonna say you are not a movie snacker? Are you a pure just movie watcher?
No, that's not the hot take. The hot take, and
Okay.
I'm really glad had you go first, is that I have absolutely no use for popcorn. Not only in movies, Chris, but in life. And it's not because I don't think popcorn is a fine tasting snack, because it is. I lump popcorn in the same category as chicken wings and crab legs, in that all three of those things taste very nice, and they are entirely too much work for the amount of enjoyment you get out of them. Now, you might ask yourself, what is the work that's involved in eating popcorn? You reach your hand into a bucket and you shovel it into your face. Well, it's not the eating of the popcorn that's the problem, Chris. It's the
It's the microwaving it for
extracting.
30 seconds?
No, no. I'm going to assume that the movie theater professionals have made the popcorn, um, and I'm resting on their laurels. But it's removing those husks from 8 feet underneath my gums that inevitably happens every time. It's not worth it. I don't want to go into a movie theater with a spool of floss. I just don't want. Not only don't I want to do it, Chris, I refuse to do it. I'm not going to do it.
A true American hero, if I've ever seen one.
Look, I didn't want to say it, Chris. That's my catchphrase. There you go. This is my catchphrase. I didn't want to say it. I'm glad you did, though. That's my catchphrase. So, my favorite movie snack would probably be, man, back in the day, it would have been Rolos, the chocolate covered caramels. I do love me some good Rolos. But I'm a big fan of gummy candies too. I do like gummies. I like the texture. Um, yeah, so probably gummy snacks of some type, whatever they might be. As long as it's gummy, I'm good. No gummy popcorn though. Actually, if it's shaped and flavored like popcorn, but it's gummy, then I actually would be into that. Okay,
Probably. I want to say one thing from the chat really quick is people
please.
are saying underrated game World's Fair 1893 by
Mm,
J. Alex Kevern, and I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree.
yeah, I also agree, and I would say underrated designer J. Alex Kevern. Um,
Yeah.
not only is that a fantastic game, I think Sentient is a really good game that has flown way under the radar. Um, it's basically introductory math equations, the game, which normally would throw me way off because I don't really love mathematical feeling games, but I really like that game. Um, He also did Ex Libris, which just the biggest issue I have with, didn't he do that? Or did he not do Ex
I don't.
Libris?
I don't think
Maybe
he
he
did
didn't
Ex
do Ex
Libris.
Libris.
I'll look it up while you
You may be
queue up the
right.
next
You
question.
may be right. Anyway, I do like some good Alex Kevern games. And he's got a new one, I think, coming out called Succulent that looks really nice
Ooh, okay.
from Renegade.
Yeah, no. Ex Libris was Adam McIver.
Oh, Adam McIver.
So
Okay. Okay. So J. Alex Kevern, no, he's no longer a good designer. I thought,
I
no, I'm just
guess
kidding.
not.
He's a fantastic designer. Oh, this is a great question. Um, Ken Aguasa. Chris, if you could go back in time, talk to your podcast episode 1, Chris, what advice would you give to yourself?
Definitely which stocks to invest in, but I assume that you mean podcast related.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
But yeah, so podcast related, I would probably say stress less. I always worked really hard to try and make sure that everything was just as perfect as could be. And then after listening to Sporadically Bored with Mike and Dan, I realized, oh, you don't have to put any effort into this, actually. Wow. So
yeah, I like to think that I like to think that we're providing a public service. So I appreciate that, Chris.
yeah, I think that's the thing is like if you're going to start a show, yeah, put a lot of effort into it, really try and make it good, but there's no need to stress over a board game show, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good advice. To some extent that is the modus operandi of mine and Dan's podcast. But even with that, as much as it may sound, you still care, right? You still care, but you're right. If you stress about it, it's going to reduce the quality of what you're trying to do. You know what I mean? So
Exactly.
you're being counterproductive. You're doing exactly what you're trying not to do by just kind of being more in the moment. I think that's a huge thing is being kind of present, being in the moment, and I would say the same thing for something like what we're doing right now. You know what I mean? This can be a
Yeah.
potentially stressful situation where you're live streaming and you've got all these wonderful questions. But what's been so cool about it is that really what it comes down to is a conversation between a bunch of people, not just you and I, but all the people in chat. And that's what I focus on. And that's what has been so enjoyable about all this is that it kind of takes some of the stress and the anxiety out of it, because when it comes down to it, it's a bunch of people talking about things that they are passionate about. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Chris, are you good? We're already a couple minutes over. Are you okay?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you're the boss here. You're just the one paying me under
Well,
the table. So
well,
you let me know when I'm good.
I didn't want to be the one to say that, Chris, but no, I'm good. Okay. Let's end with one more, right? Let's have one more question that we can end with. So I went all the way down to the bottom, and I'm looking up, and I'm hoping that I can see a question relatively. Oh, Kabuki Kid mentioned Pitfall. Yeah, Pitfall. I loved Pitfall. Um, I'm looking. If you see one, Chris, that you really want to end with, let me know.
No, but I see Paul said to future or past Chris, make sure to tell him to invest in Nintendo after the Wii U, but before the Switch comes out.
Uh-huh. That's a very good
Yep.
point. That's a very good point. Oh, good. I'm winning some people back with gummies. I'd lost some
Good on
people,
you.
but I won them back with gummies. So, um, oh, we're getting all the movie things now. Okay, I'm trying. I want to end with one more big question, Chris. I'm not afraid of dead air. Wow, we're just having a lot of chat, which is great. I'm just trying to find a question. Okay, here we go. And this is good because I don't believe we've had a question from this chatter. Corey Christensen, what's your favorite relaxing activity? It's a good thing to end on, right? We're wrapping up the show. We're kind of putting a bow on everything. What do you like to do to relax, Chris?
Man, that's a great question. I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
sounds silly that I would have to think about this. Board gaming should be,
Mm-hmm.
in many respects, that calming relaxing hobby, but I play for a little bit of the stress, the tension, you know.
Sure.
So I think just strumming my guitar, that is one of my favorite things to do. Or I play the piano a little bit. My wife plays the piano a lot. She's
Hmm.
very good, and so both of us sitting down and singing or playing our instruments and singing a song together, just making music, I think is it's always been a passion of mine. And so that's what I would go with. How about you,
Yeah,
Mike?
that's good. And that's something that I always wish that I had picked up was taking the time to learn an instrument. I think I've mentioned that before, because I think that that's something that I would be very relaxing to me as well. Um, my favorite relaxing activity is something that I don't get to do very often, but we're asking favorite, not one that I do most often. But to me, my favorite relaxing activity is um, going to the beach. I grew up in Southern California, and I grew up kind of in the water. I mean, there's pictures of me in my diaper in the Pacific Ocean, and so that to me is my, if I'm gonna like meditate or think of a place to calm, it's always going to be laying at the beach, um, the smell of the salt water, the feel of the breeze coming off the ocean. To me, being in and around the ocean is remarkably relaxing to me. Um, as a matter of fact, like if I go to the ocean and I spend a significant amount of time in the water, one of my favorite things is going to sleep that night and laying in bed and still feeling the motion
Mm,
of the water. Because if you're in long enough, it just, for me, I don't know if other people have this sensation, but if I'm in the water for a long
yeah.
time, um, hours later, going to bed at night, I still feel that sensation of the tides in the water, and that to me is the most relaxing thing in the world. So, good question, Corey. Thank you for asking, and thank everybody for your fantastic questions and contributions in the chat. And Chris, thank you for coming on. This has been a pleasure, a genuine pleasure, and I'm glad we got a chance to talk a little bit. It's sometimes we need these excuses to talk, but I enjoy it whenever we get a chance to talk.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. The chat's been fantastic. It's been fun. I can't comment on every single thing that goes
I
by, but yeah,
know, I
thank you
know.
all, and this has been a ton of fun. So thank you everyone in the chat. Thank you, Mike, for inviting me to come along.
Absolutely, absolutely, and thank you for mentioning that, Chris. If we didn't get to your question or comment, I apologize. It's just I am notoriously slow about getting through them, so please don't take it personally. But anyway, it's been lovely. Good night, everybody. There'll be another daily chat tomorrow, and I think it's Tom, but it just as well could be Z or Roy. No idea, but it's a daily chat, and so it's going to be good, right?
My money's on it. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. All right. All we have left to say is good night. Good night, everybody.
Good night, sweet prince.